Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Now, we're currently joined by Ranty Flat Earth and Sleeping Warrior to discuss the current events with perhaps Zen Garcia, maybe that'll come up, hopefully Patricia Steer, and there was one other thing that we were going to talk about. What was it, guys? I've forgotten.
Oh, the non-sec.
Oh, non-sequitur show, yes indeed. Do you want to start with those, Ranty?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that Red Rhetoric had put a live stream out, and basically had one of the founding members of the non-sec on there.
Which one, Kyle or the guy, Steve?
Steve. Steve McRae, and basically they were explaining that there'd been some kind of fallout between them, that essentially he's been pushed out of the side door. And that there's a lot of disagreement about finances and money and how much is owed to him, apparently.
So Tim Osmond did a stream about it and was saying that it's some sort of tax dodge. Now, how much credence I lend to what Tim says is obviously for anyone's own assessment, but nevertheless, he was essentially alluding that he's on some sort of state benefits and had to accept cash payments only or something to that effect. Again, how true that is, I don't know.
He somewhat agreed to that. Seriously, he somewhat said that Steve McRae was on, and they got this lady to come on called Shannon, and I think she was some kind of sort of like she had some kind of part in the show itself as well. I'm not sure who she was, but she definitely knew quite a lot about what was going on. And she said, well, there is a reason why you haven't been paid your part of the money and why it's been set to one side for so long. But I'm not going to air that in public. And then Steve volunteered the information, and he said, well, that's because I'm on disability benefits. And that the money was supposed to be going to my children in, sort of in perpetuity or something.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity, yeah, that was it. So the in perpetuity money was supposed to go to his children, but he still wanted paying for the work that he'd done for himself up to now, which is in, from what he was quoting, apparently the non sequitur show is sitting on 60,000 at least.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So he's entitled to half of that, so he believes. And he wants his money because basically this Kyle fella who has basically strong-armed him out of the show, took all his, changed all the passwords, did all this, did all that, said you're having nothing more to do with the show. So he has no way of actually getting back on the show because this guy's taken full control. It's a bit like a hostile takeover, really. But apparently he's also got all the finances. He's dealing with all the finances. All the money's gone into his accounts. He has all this. And it's a bit of a shit show, really. There's a big, massive war going on between them. And there's a lot of stuff been said in public, which I'm only relaying what's been said in public. Essentially that he's on disability. And that was the reason why Kyle wasn't giving him his money every month, was saving it up as a big tax dodge, essentially.
Wow. Interesting.
All comes out to light in the end, Nathan.
I'd love to be in a position where I'd earn enough money from YouTube to actually have to pay tax. A few people ask me in the comments, like, do you pay tax on your money? I'm like, I don't earn enough money to pay tax. I wish I did. Hit the super chat. But yeah, no, I'm not obviously anywhere near as successful as they are, but if it's one big tax scam, it's one of those, I note down what I do earn so I can keep track of whether or not I should be paying tax. But I thought everyone did that. I thought that was just one of those done things. I know there's plenty of people out there like, you shouldn't give the man the money, and it's like, well, I don't want to end up in jail. That's the bottom line here. Death and taxes, right?
Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, for him to admit that on a live show, though, it was it was really obvious what they were saying. And this Shannon, this lady that came on, she said, yeah, well, there's a reason why we've not given you the money, but I don't want to tell people. And then he volunteered the information. So it's like they were all aware that they weren't giving him the money, because if they gave him money with him being on disability, then they would just take his disability off him. So it was dead money, you know? So they were trying to swizz it. He wanted to get his money in a way that didn't involve the authorities. But it was all said in the open. People can go and check the video. It's on Res Rhetoric's channel. And it looks like going forward, they're certainly not going to have Steve McRae on that show going forward anyway.
Deceive McRae.
Can you just do us a favour, sorry to interrupt. Can you just, one of you go to Skype, go into the Master B chat and just check that the link actually works for Discord? So yesterday Betty said, the link didn't actually work. So I published a link. I got a fresh link. I even refreshed the page as I do each day. But what I didn't do is test it.
I don't have a Discord.
No, Ranty, that's why I asked Anthony.
Well, you'll have to add me to the group then to do it.
Well, no, what I'm saying, that's what the link does. So if you go into the...
No, you'll have to add me to the Master B. Or send me the link, because I'm not in
okay.
Master Beta chat, am I?
Oh, okay, I didn't realise you were in it.
Too many dodgies.
Too many dodgies? I'm in there, you cheeky sod.
Well, Nora's in that chat, and I can't coexist next to Nora.
Why not?
Can't.
What's wrong with having somebody else with a different opinion?
Yeah, but it's not an opinion, is it? She's pushing it as truth, and I don't agree.
I agree. So isn't that a useful... I would call that being a useful tool, right? Her having that position, she represents a substantial number of people who would also hold a similar position. Do you not agree?
I can agree with the adjective tool. I wouldn't say it's a useful tool, though.
Well, yesterday when Spurs came in and he's arguing for the Cavendish experiment, I found that incredibly useful. I mean, after the fact, I looked at the chat and there's people going, Spurs are bored. I'm like, no, obviously not. It's just putting across the argument as it's been phrased to him in rebuttal from the other side. And he did a really good job of it. Yeah, he's fighting it because, you know, he's having to use cognitive dissonance to make a point. It's hard, right? But people just gave him loads of shit over it, and it's like, well, no, he's a useful tool. I'm not saying he's a tool in a derogatory way. I'm saying it in a very positive way. There you go. I've sent you the link to Discord. Can you just check it takes you to the live stream?
It took me to a login page. So I would suggest perhaps not.
What? Well, maybe you're not logged in. Are you not logged in?
Not on web browser. No, it took me to the web browser. Let me get the. Hang on a sec. Grant temporary membership. Generate a new link. Copy that. Right. I then send you this back. If it's the same link, it'll work.
Okay.
Shit.
No, it's not.
That's a porn link.
There you go. Yes. Okay, that's so it works. Fine. Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, so next thing on the docket for you in the Uncut and After Show audience on Nathan Oakley is Patricia Steer. So I got a phone call from Anthony. Who else was on the call? Jason, Roxanne, and Ranty. And they're all asking me if I know why Patricia Steer has deleted a channel. And I'm like, no. We spoke yesterday, but she didn't allude to anything in that regard. I mean, yeah, there was things that we discussed that I'm not going to repeat. But yeah, I didn't know this was going to happen. And they're asking me. I'm like, why don't you just add her to the fucking phone call? Just add her. So Ranty adds her to the phone call. And she explained that, in essence, she's so pissed off with people on her own side making up complete horseshit about her that she's decided she's had enough. She had a very nice life before Flat Earth. She was only trying to inject some positivity into the arena of Flat Earth in the respect to people who are underappreciated or underknown or whatever. And she's done an exceptionally good job of that. So good, in fact, I'm going to give her immediate credit and say I tried to emulate what she was doing with my Flat Earth UK show. So, you know, I thought she was fantastic. I tried to emulate what she did. And it's heartbreaking that she's got rid of her channel off the back of, according to her, in her own words, the arseholes. No, just joking. She wouldn't say that. The not so nice people. I wrote it down. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, so let me itemize it. she specifically said the ramshackle vagina quote from Pete Shea pissed her off. Not so much that it came from Pete Shea, although it did come from Pete Shea. So yes, you are responsible, Pete Shea. The fact that Antonio adopted it and started using it, and then obviously he's got more reach than Pete Shea has, and it basically reasserts this notion that she is something other than the way she presents. And basically, Pete Shea, Antonio, you should be disgusted with yourselves. You are putrid. And to be honest, I don't think Pete Shea should be invited anywhere. He needs to be kept off places because he's just got a loose tongue, and mud sticks, and people don't have the mud thrown at them easily, but they seem to. They shouldn't be getting it thrown easily, but they seem to. So Pete, you're a prick, and so are you, Antonio.
Yeah, okay, so let's not mudsling ourselves. So specifically the words that she used were, it's the flat earthers who are not so nice. She's tired of the infighting and drama and accusations that are false. She's still a flat earther and will remain so, however, having had a very nice life before she came into flat earth and not suffered at the hands of endless bullying, she felt that it was no benefit to her to continue after 3 years plus of endless bullying. So that is her reasons as given by her. Basically just sick of the false accusations that she had levelled at her door ever since she entered this arena. From my perspective, I'm like, ignore them. I'm sure a lot of people said that, but on the other hand, I'm not subject to the type of bullying that she was subject to, or the relentless nature that she was subject to it. So yeah, I feel extremely sad that Patricia's left our not so happy arena of this little corner of the internet. It's a sad day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shout outs to all the pricks that thought she was a bloke.
You know, I mean, I just want to know, you know, the flat earthers that bullied her, I mean, are they happy that she's gone now in some way? I mean, did a channel threaten them so much that she gave a platform for, you know, relatively few subscribed and underappreciated flat earthers out there, new channels? She gave them a platform. That was it. Was it really that bad? Was her content that bad? Are you happy she's gone? You know, let's think about it. Let's think what she did to the community. Forget all the accusations about gender. Forget all the accusations about being a CIA agent and all that stuff. Right? Let's just get it back to basics. Channel what she did for the community. Was she the bad person now that she's gone? You know, you need to reflect on that. You know, and you also need to reflect on how you treated her over those years of bullying, years of it.
Well, as I say, I think the people who actually did that would be over the moon, and my appeal isn't really to them. I'm gutted. I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there who are also gutted that she's no longer amongst this particular arena making videos. That's heartbreaking. But yeah, let's not dwell on the people who will undoubtedly be elated with this news. So yeah, my appeal isn't really to them. Was there another subject? I'm sure there was one of the non-sequitur petitions.
Zen Garcia.
Yeah, Zen Garcia. I don't think I got laboured enough. You around, Anthony?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you can go through the broad strokes, because as much as it was immediately poo-pooed by Brenda yesterday, she's like, it doesn't mean anything. It's like, well, it does mean something. It means what it means, right? You know, it is what it is.
It was poo-pooed because it was released on Facebook, and therefore, because it's released on Facebook, they were like, no, that's not credible. And on the face of it, I agree. But it was reporting the incident on Facebook, not relying on a Facebook citation to prove the point that was being made. So when Facebook in this instance isn't the credibility issue, it's the point that was being made was the communication of what's gone on. So Zen Garcia has offered $15,000 for anybody that can independently measure curvature of the Earth on 2 independent occasions that are not linked to each other. So, for example, you might have Lake Pontchartrain as one, and then somewhere else as another, and then measure it twice, prove that it's curved in 2 places. That's the deal. So, some guy called Thompson has claimed the 15 grand because he claimed that he'd done it, and he claimed in the same way that Wallace claimed against Hampden in the Bedford Levels experiment. That isn't really an experiment. He claimed the 15,000, and Zen Garcia said, "Well, you're not demonstrating curvature. You're not measuring curve." Hang on, let me just get rid of this dog. It's far too noisy.
Oh, it's the dog making the noise. I thought it was Nathan. I muted him.
Yeah, don't do that. Whatever you do, don't mute me. Definitely don't mute me, because that cocks up a lot
Sorry,
of
the
the
dog's
audio
gone now.
connections.
Yeah, so basically, the 15,000 was claimed by a guy called Thompson, who basically, like a baller, he claims that he's demonstrated the point being made. He wants his compensation for his time and his money and his effort and whatnot. And Zen Garcia said, "You're not proving the curvature of the Earth. You're claiming it, but you're not proving it, and this wouldn't stand in court." Then Thompson said, "Yeah, it would. I'll take you to court if you don't give it me." And Zen Garcia said, "Well, go on then. Let's see if the court agrees with you." Now, Brenda made a really poignant point yesterday, which was the courts don't decide matters of fact, or words to that effect. In other words, they can't change matters of fact, whether it's a sphere or not. Brenda's point was that the courts won't change the shape of the Earth. But what the courts can actually and do actually decide on are the matters of fact. What can we demonstrate? Now, this is my point. The arguments that the ball has put up to explain this curvature or the axial rotation or gravity or all of these points in housekeeping, these points would not stand in court. Now, they wouldn't, because the standard of proof is not consensus driven. Its standard of proof is not holding each other's willies whilst you all agree that that's correct, like Rumpus does with people, like with his comrades. In court, it's what you can prove, right? It's what you can prove, not what you know, not what you believe, not what Rumpus said. It's what you can actually prove. Now, if you're going to claim that there was you've measured the curvature of the Earth following the 8 inches per mile squared, then you're going to have to prove that you've done it. And the courts decided, no, you haven't proven the curvature of the Earth with measurements the way that you were expected to claim, the way you were expected to do. You're not having the money, which is obviously correct. If you don't demonstrate that you've done the thing that you're claiming that you've done in court, then you're not going to get any money. So it's a good day for courts because it showed an impartial reality, which I'm impressed with. I didn't actually think it'd go that way, but it did. That's great. It's a good day for Flat Earth because, again, like Sly Sparkane failed to measure curvature of the Earth with his pipes and his water experiment testing or observation, this guy called Thompson also failed to measure the curvature of the Earth twice. And it's a really bad day for ball earthers because, again, you've got another failed experiment where you've got what's his name, Greater Sapien, that failed to fly around the Earth, cost everybody 20 grand. Nobody batters an eyelid at that 20 grand that went missing, do they? You've also got Sly Sparkane, who failed to measure the curvature of the Earth with his watering experiment thing. And now you've got this guy called Thompson who used some software to try and demonstrate the gaps between a bridge stanchion or whatever it was, whatever the issue was. And I'm not going to go into it. Again, you've failed to demonstrate the measurements of curvature of the Earth. Well, put them three things together there, and we've got a really strong case there to say that you guys cannot prove your claims. You believe them, and you all hold each other's willies whilst you support each other, but that doesn't mean it's proof. And this is what my mantra is. This would not stand up in court because it isn't proving the claims that were being made. Just because you all agree that the axial rotation is proved by the stars doesn't mean in court that it would be. And ultimately, the court decides what's going on. And that's why I'm pro-court, because I think that a lot of these claims that these ballers present wouldn't actually stand up in court.
Yeah, all we got was a terrible equivocation. So we got a fallacy in regards to the court doesn't decide whether or not the tides come in. Well, those natural laws of nature, things that are happening in our environment, aren't controlled by the laws of man. Well, that's what we're talking about. The laws of man. And in this instance, somebody saying, you owe me $15,000 because I've proven the Earth is a sphere. And they've gone to court and the judge has said, no, you haven't. You're not owed £15,000 because you haven't proven within the justified realms of the agreed terms, presumably.
And the thing is, the courts remove the emotion from it. So it's a very emotional subject, as we know. The Globers are very passionate about their belief in the globe, and that's why they're willing to just accept things that they're showed or given or told, because it's a passion for them and they have emotions attached to it. The courts aren't. The courts need to rule it by facts and evidence. So they weighed it up. This guy brought his best evidence and proofs of the globe. It was shot down in court because the court said, you know what, we've removed the emotion from it and we're looking at it just on a factual basis, and it doesn't make any sense. You've not proved your claim. So they ruled in favour of flat Earth.
Yeah, basically the courts aren't interested in fundamentalist religious beliefs about Earth curve, only what you can prove. And he didn't. because there isn't any. The Earth is obviously and observably flat. If there was any demonstrable curvature, that would have obviously gone in the favour of the person that measured the obvious curvature that we have. Well, he didn't, because we don't. It's flat.
Yeah, well said, Nathan.
And the other thing as well, the courts are not interested in the rhetoric, whereas the ballers are only interested in rhetoric. They want 6 people to agree with them that blue means red. If 6 people agree with them that blue means red, then blue means red, because 6 people agree with them. It's driven by consensus. It's not driven by what you can prove. Whereas this is what I've been saying to people. It's not what you know or what you believe, it's what you can prove, and that your arguments in court would not stand. So if this guy called Thompson sued Zen Garcia for his 15 grand and then couldn't prove that he'd done the thing that he said he had, I don't think any of them would be able to prove measurable curvature. And I think it's about time that we actually started pushing these fuckers to do it, because it's not right. It's not okay to tell people that we're on a curve if you can't prove that we are on a curve.
Well, how hard can it be, right? We're supposed to live on a sphere, right? Every textbook, every scientist in the world is all telling us that we live on a sphere, right? How hard can it be to actually just provide evidence of that in court and get 15 grand for it?
Impossible.
How hard can it be?
Impossible, because we don't. If we did, that was my point. If we did, it would be extremely easy to gather that data and present it in a coherent way that got you your claim won. Well, he didn't. He failed because it's not. It's not curving. No one's going to measure Earth curve. There isn't any.
And I think the Globers need to appreciate what we've just said there, that with all these scientists in the world and all this money being handed out for free, just show us the Earth curve, prove it, demonstrate it in court. There's not just him that's offering money. There's other people that have put money up as well for this proof of curvature. So, if you get them all together and you just do it in one hit, you can make a lot of money. There's probably £500,000 waiting out there for people to just put an experiment together that proves the shape of the Earth. That's it. Go and show us this curvature.
Do you know what I'd like to know? I'd like to know what Thompson's main arguments were, and I'd like Rumpus to dissect them and tell us what Thompson would have needed to have done to demonstrate that that there is curve there. Because Thompson, if the Earth's curved according to Rumpus, then that means that Thompson didn't do a very good job at presenting the evidence to prove the curve. And I'd like Rumpus to tell us what was the point that Thompson failed to do.
No, get in line. That might be what you want him to do, but he's already got tasks on the table. Prove air is not the atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's like that guy yesterday, the horizon. Where's the horizon? Where does the sky, where does the air touch the ground?
I mean, the sky.
Sky. The sky touches the ground, yeah. That's it.
The sky doesn't touch the ground, Ranty. That's the point. The air does.
I think there's another legitimate point to raise, that there are certain points that these ballers will not concede. And it's really bad, because I went in Jose's the other day, and we all know what the independent variable is, right? We know it's the assumed cause. We know you've got to give it a wiggle, and we know that once you wiggle it and then it gives you the effect that you believe that you're looking at, then unless somebody can demonstrate that it's wrong by doing some other manipulation to prove that it's something else causing it, then it is the cause. You establish the cause of the effect. They will not admit that you have to wiggle the variable to prove that it's the effect. And even if they were to admit that, they still think that you can have multiple causes, and they still think that it doesn't prove cause and effect. And they also say that science doesn't prove things.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what they say.
I know, that's why there's no point going in there, because they won't ever accept the point that's being made. What I do want to do, Nathan, if you don't mind, I want to play a clip. Hang on a sec.
Good morning.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Mind Warped.
Hey. I can't stay. No, I've got to get out and do some stuff. Are you guys recording at the moment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll just put it in the side chat then. Yeah, I'll just ask you guys a quick question if you can. It'd be awesome. But yeah, check it out. I'll just put a link in there.
This it doesn't. Science helps you find positive.
I hear your background noise through your mic, Anthony.
I'm trying to pass it through. Could you hear that then?
No, just what your mic was picking up from your speakers.
Let me try it with this. Is this any better? Do you hear this?
That means you can't
No.
prove relevant.
Did you hear that?
No, it's just coming through your mic.
Let me turn that down. I don't want it coming through the mic.
It's only coming through your mic.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to patch it through. Hang on. Could you hear that?
No. Hey, Ranty. Ranty. Paul.
Good morning.
Nathan, should I just send you the file on Skype or something?
Can do.
It's only a little one.
What is it?
Do you remember?
exactly?
Do you remember Paul Voigt?
Yeah.
Basically, he was trying to argue that science doesn't prove anything, and I was like, well, it proves the cause of an effect, and it also proves the hypothesis or the null hypothesis. You're talking rubbish. And I demanded that he accepts that scientific method does prove cause, and scientific method does prove either your null or your hypothesis, one or the other. And he wouldn't accept it. And I was like, in the end, I got him to admit that if science can't prove anything, then it can't prove the shape of the Earth, right? And then he admitted it. And when he said that, I said, "Can you just say that again so I don't get accused of cherry picking it?" So I've sent it to you on Skype now. Just play it if you would. It's only about 10 seconds.
Science doesn't prove anything. That means you can't prove we live on a sphere, right?
No, that's
We can
right.
only show
prove
evidence.
that-
No
Technically
problem.
right.
I'm all right with that. Thanks for the concession, Paul.
Yeah, we can't prove that we live on a sphere, but we can provide an absolute
No
mountain.
problem. I'll just take that
evidence
soundbite
that-
forever.
We can provide an absolute mountain of evidence that we do.
So Lily, you will cherry pick again or what?
Just say that again for us, Paul, so that I don't get accused of cherry picking. Just say that science
cherry
can't
picking.
prove we live on a ball.
In the exact same way, it can't prove.
Let
Yeah,
him
go on,
get
and
his
again.
soundbite.
That's
He
it.
doesn't think science proves things. Of course, he doesn't think science can prove we live on.
Science
But
didn't prove things. There'd be no point doing it.
Yeah, and if science doesn't prove things, then you've got that stupid paradox where you can't prove that the whole body of science doesn't actually prove we live on a ball.
What they actually mean is, we don't do science, we just call it science. It's pseudoscience, and it does not prove things. Also, what we claim is proven with our pseudoscience when we call it science. We may change at a later date. So by saying it doesn't actually prove things, it helps immensely when we change our just so story further down the line. Now, in reality, science does prove things. As Anthony pointed out, it proves the cause of an effect. It's empirical because you have two sides to your hypothesis, a null and an alternative. If you validate the alternative, you invalidate the null. And likewise, if you validate the null, in other words, you don't achieve the effect you thought you would achieve when you presumed the cause of an effect, then you invalidate the alternative. Hence, the empiricism is given. You either prove or disprove your hypothesis. So, no, fundy zealots that use pseudoscientists to make their point, yeah, you're going to fail and you're going to need to claim that science doesn't prove things because your pseudoscience doesn't prove things. Your claim of a Cavendish ball setup proving things like gravity? Oh, right, Paul. So it doesn't prove things. Yeah, that's because it's pseudoscience. Real science would prove things, unlike your Cavendish balls and other circus sideshow apparatus you hold up as quote-unquote proof of things. It's not, just pseudoscience. Science does prove things, pseudoscience does not.
Yeah, I think Paul. I can't understand. All of them are fundamentally dishonest. None of them will ever concede certain points because they know that if they concede them, it means that they destroy part of their argument. They just never concede it. Independent variable doesn't prove you can have many of them. Shut up, you idiots. Total science deniers. And the annoying thing is what's actually happening now is there's no actual discussion anymore because Jose's got his ballers that are all sat there holding each other's willies. Nathan's got all the flat earthers holding each other's willies. We're not actually having any discussion anymore. What we're actually doing is appealing to our own audiences. Not going to sort anything out by appealing to our own audiences, are we?
That's Nathan's fault, that. He scared all the Globers away.
Well, defeating an argument when they present it isn't scaring them away. They're just scared to come because they know they don't have any arguments to present.
Anthony, do you mind repeating what you said?
Prompt me with a keyword.
The part about Nathan's got his group, the other one has this group. What was your point?
So Nathan's got the flat earthers. Jose's got the ball earthers. There is no discussion anymore because everybody's appealing to their own audiences rather than trying to settle this stuff with science.
Okay, stop. What do you mean there's no discussion anymore? I mean, what do you mean by that?
They come in Nathan's because they get battered and they blame them.
Hang on. So we have discussions. They're invited to come. When they come, in our viewpoint, they get battered. In their viewpoint, they may have scored a point or two. They go back to their group.
No, in their group, Nathan uses the mute button all the time, but that's because they want to be able to obfuscate points. And we're like, no, you're not going to speak us continuously.
But listen, if they're going to resort to the mute button and Nathan, if that's all they got, they've already lost. And I like it because it's like a sporting event where one team's killing the other side and it's not even halftime. That's fine. But the discussion's not over. We're having it. They're just not able to score any more points. So they have to say, the referee is married to the cousin of the coach of the other team. That's basically their mute button.
They just don't like not being able to obfuscate points. They need to be able to obfuscate points.
Right, but when you're in a sporting match and you're beating your opponent, enjoy it. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I just wish that there were more honest discussions between people that could actually disagree properly. Because
there are.
Their form of disagreement is going to speak over you. That's not.
There are those discussions. They're not at the front line. They're behind the front lines. We're the front line. This show's the front line. We're getting all the crazies. They're getting all the strong flat earthers on the front line. We're getting the so-called strong ballers on their front line that now claim it's a mute button that's keeping them from winning. But behind those lines are normal, regular people who will just maybe get a snippet of a show. And it's done. They'll see who's right. The masses are not like these groups. Don't judge the masses by these groups that we run into. It's like Brenda yesterday trying to use Aristotle's 4 causes to say a car on the side of the road is a phenomenon.
Or a shoe.
Well, I mean, she totally misquoted Aristotle's 4 causes. I'm reading Aristotle. I read a lot. And the 4 causes, the formal cause, the material cause, the efficient cause, the final cause. Well, she forgot about the formal cause, which is the sculptor's idea. Like, for example, if you're going to do a statue, the sculptor's idea or plan for the actual sculpture is the formal cause. It's an idea. It's something in his mind. The material cause, this is what she went to, is the block of marble. So she was saying the iron in the ground, in this case, the block of marble in my example, is the cause. She actually said, and I re-listened to the show, her claim was this: raw material in the ground, car sitting alongside the road is the phenomenon. So the cause was the raw material, basically. No, the cause is the formal cause, which is the idea of something first. Then the material cause, which is the block of marble in my example. Then the efficient cause, which is the sculpture. I mean, the sculptor himself, when he's chiseling away at the marble. That's the efficient cause. And the last is the final cause, which is, what's it made for? Well, it's to decorate somebody's house. The statue from a marble. She butchered Aristotle. But she butchers everything else. So I like that. I like it when they come and quote Aristotle, and I could go to the four causes and say, wait a minute, he never said that.
The reason you can't have a debate with the Glober is because they get hysterical too quickly.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And what they do is they gang up on you numerically, and then it becomes 3v1, 4v1. And even when they're wrong, they will claim victory because it's 3v1, 4v1, regardless of the reality of the world in which you live in.
Why are we? This is funny that we're even talking this way. Why do we care if they ran out of ammo and they're just pointing their guns without bullets at us? Why do we care? Isn't that the goal? Didn't we win then?
When the show starts, remind me to give some feedback on the baller points about my most recent few videos. It's glorious.
Well, I would love to hear that.
Oh yeah, it's really good. The ballers are just unbelievable.
No, this is a day to rejoice when they're only talking about the mute button. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not so concerned about people purposefully lying about Aristotle or how scientific method is. It isn't, when it's obviously a narrow method. It's got to take out bias. We know what it is. It's got to be where a man's opinion can't play a factor in the discovery. And these people are trying to say it can. Well, fine. Then meet us on the Oakley show. And from as Nathan is labeled by Bob, a former grocery clerk, and a wannabe lawyer like you, like they label you that, or me, a farmer, how can we win then? How come a former grocery clerk is kicking everybody's butt? Because the truth kicks everybody's butt.
I'm not
the
one
truth
of
kicks everybody's butt.
Doesn't
Doesn't matter if a child says it or a man says it with a degree.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, how dare you, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum, which I strongly advise you all join. Most importantly, if you'd like to join this discussion right here, right now, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Ranty Flat Earth, 10th Man, Chocolate Saiyan, Paul, and I think that's pretty much it. Hopefully we've got a few people in Discord as well. Very good to have you all.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Shout out to Del West Watson. How you doing, Del West Watson, who says, oi, oi. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Thank you very much. Any signs of Earth curvature?
None at all.
All over the place, Nathan.
Tell me more. All over the place. I would expect that to be the case on a sphere. What do you mean?
Well, it's all over the place. I mean, some guy went to court to tell the courts that, and they laughed at him. Throughout his case, Nathan. Even though it's supposed to be everywhere.
Talking about Zen Garcia, which we discussed in the pre-show, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Arwin.
Hey, good afternoon.
Very good to have you. Any signs of axial rotation?
No.
No axes rotating, unfortunately. Stars in the sky. Can't tell you whether it's the Earth moving or the stars.
The stars.
I'm pretty sure
No,
it's
the
not
floor
the
is not moving.
It's the
It's
stars.
just nonsense.
Agreed. Do you have something to add to that, Arwin?
I'm pretty sure that whatever's up there, if they move, that's perfectly fine because we have no confirmation that it's physical. The Earth, however, being physical, would have a lot of palpable consequences that would naturally derive from it.
Yes.
And we don't sense that at all.
Speed changes. Shout out to Ute. Any evidence or scientific evidence of gravity?
Scientific evidence of what?
Gravity.
Scientific evidence of what?
Gravity.
No.
Scientific evidence thereof?
No, just a vast presuppositional structure, a conceptualized mechanical structure that is very efficient, yet lacks any physical proof. It's purely, conceptual.
Imaginary. It's called imagination, Arwin.
No, it's conceptual mechanics. It just like math and philosophy, it falls in those regions. Conceptual mechanics.
Right. As in force of the floor, that doesn't exist. That part. The force.
So Nathan,
right.
So Nathan,
No. The force is there. It's just not gravity. There's other ways to explain it that do anchor it in actual scientific proof.
Which is why the question is there any signs of gravity? Right?
Right.
So
So
Nathan,
that would be a no.
Nope.
Let 10th man know when you're done, guys.
There we go.
Let 10th man know when you're done.
Good. I'm sorry, brother.
no, that's all right. To have scientific evidence be proven, you would have to have a dependent, independent variable, control variable. You have to wiggle it. You have to mess with it just to manipulate it to see what's the cause for the effect. Correct, everybody?
Yeah.
So when George Musser says gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force, and then he calls it magic, and he says it's a non-force, pretending to be a force in reality. How does the scientific method wiggle a non-force?
It doesn't. So when they claim that it's the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time, then you're not going to be able to vary and manipulate a conceptual medium that apparently gives rise to a non-force that you can think of as a force. It's just doublespeak nonsense and fantasy. It's akin to what was told to Luke Skywalker.
Right.
The other thing is
So when the ballers say we can prove gravity, whether it's Newtonian gravity or Einsteinian gravity, well, Musser says there is no force in Newtonian, so that's out. Now they say it's the bending of time-space. Well, you can't wiggle it or mess with it, so that's out. So it's all made up.
Yeah, pseudoscience, essentially. They're not actually basing on any empirical evidence. They're simply asserting it. It's a just so story. Very interesting that they can make up this medium and then start bending it and causing a non-force force that gives rise to a force you can think of as a force.
So will they ever admit that the scientific method cannot be used to prove it?
Well, George Musser certainly knows that. He made it very plain. The cause? Oh, no. We don't know the cause. Well,
Actually, Paul Voigt. We have a citation from Paul Voigt doing that.
No, I mean,
You played it before, Nathan.
Yeah. What Paul Voigt's saying is science doesn't prove things, which is just fundamentally incorrect. What he actually means is, like Mr. Moose's statements, they prove nothing. But they're not science. It's just the words of a fundamentalist zealot who believes he lives on a sphere, telling the world about his religious beliefs in stuff he has constructed based on the mathematics of Einstein. Not the actual world we live in. That would be dealt exclusively with by actual science. You know, a study of the physical and natural world, natural science. That's what we're interested in here on Flat Earth Debate. Would you not all agree? We're all interested in the physical and natural world, as opposed to mathematics that they derive conceptual mediums and then bend according to them.
So what he's basically doing is mistakenly calling it science. What he actually should be saying is pseudoscience doesn't prove anything.
That's correct. Absolutely. So when he says science, he doesn't mean science. Science absolutely proves things. It proves or disproves your hypothesis. It establishes a cause of an effect, or it validates your null. In other words, does not confirm that you have a valid cause of an effect. So it's an empirical method used for a very long period of time to establish cause, to discover the cause of a natural phenomena, not reify a mathematical formula into something we can never see, taste, touch, or experience in any way, shape, or form. They just tell us that it's there, a conceptual medium that they have invented mathematically. It's an utter load of nonsense.
There's a secondary point that follows on from Musa. When Musa says gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force, well, what's causing tides? Because we're told that it's the moon, right? If the moon doesn't have a magical force between the Earth and it, because Musa said so, then that by definition means that the moon cannot be causing the tides. There is no gravitational attraction. It means that something else has to be causing the tides. What that is, who knows? Who cares? But it's not the moon doing it, right?
That's a good point, because technically with the Einsteinian concept, it's now the bending of space-time, and it just seems to be set in a certain way. So how does that set certain way actually then cause the mass-to-mass attracting from the moon to the Earth? It's really not explained that well if you start to think about it critically.
Well, one lie.
Even George himself kind of made fun of that concept in the interview. Just to kind of paraphrase, I mean, he was kind of like the mere aspect of a force reaching from one body to another body was just preposterous.
Yep, and also
and even Newton thought that. So,
but also think about it like this: if you would start to accept the presupposition of a space-time bending, right, that causes this one-way directional apparent force, that can only work one way. Look, if you conceptualize mass attracting mass, then there is like two-way effects, basically, if you have two objects. But with the bending of space-time, that's technically impossible.
Okay,
It can only go one way. There cannot be two bendings of space-time crossing one another. That's can't work.
It lied about the painting. The canvas is the lie. Now we're going to each little drawing and brush stroke and saying, well, that's a lie now. And, oh, that's a lie now. Well, the whole canvas is a lie. So the whole painting is a lie.
I'm going to take that as a pause to move on with housekeeping. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
No.
No.
Sounds like a lot of word salad to me, Nathan.
Sounds like a lot of what, Ranty?
Word salad to me.
It is a load of word salad. Self-explanatory, though. Obviously, you've got a presupposed spherical Earth in that statement. Well, you'd need to prove out that presupposition before we start identifying molten iron cores at the centre of that presupposition, let's be honest. Any evidence of the R value, the presupposition itself?
No.
Nope.
Last but by no means least, any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon, for all the fundamentalist religious zealots who believe the sky is a vacuum known as outer space.
This is the one that puts me the most about the current state of play. There's an outstanding issue on the table with conspiracy cats, and it has been for about 12 months, and the ballers just ignore it. It's like, why aren't the ballers getting conspiracy cats to at least present the evidence that supports the assertion that you can have gas pressure within a vacuum without some kind of membrane? Ballers are not doing it, and I don't understand why. It's a legitimate on-topic disagreement about the evidence to prove the point. Where is that evidence? Conspiracy cats has got it pinned on him. Ballers are ignoring it and coming up with explanations or whatever, logical or reasonable explanations. But the fact that it does it, the fact that if you didn't have the balloon, and it, like he says, without the balloon, there is no pressure. Well, the fact that that gas pressure goes into the vacuum
and disperses immediately and fills the available volume. The fact that it does that is the same reason why when you have a density disequilibrium, you've got a differential between two mediums. It's the same reason why the movement happens. So when people are asking me, well, why is the movement happening? It's the same reason for why gas pressure goes to vacuum. There's a pressure disequilibrium there, and it will just equalize immediately. But people don't question it when it comes to the gas exploding into the vacuum of space, because they understand that's what will happen. But when it comes to the little cherry tomato in the density tower and that moving all by itself, if we manipulate the medium, well, what makes it move? The same thing that makes the gas pressure burst off into space. Just the way it is.
Anthony, let's try to understand what you're saying. So let's just clear up. Are you? Is this an experiment? What you're saying? What you're showing? Yeah.
No, I'm saying that conspiracy cats has pinned on him to explain or prove the evidence that allows us to have gas pressure next to a vacuum without some kind of membrane.
Let me see if I could.
No, he can't demonstrate.
How can we demonstrate?
Hold on, go on, Spurs.
No, I absolutely agree. You know, you got conspiracy cats promoting this idea, but not demonstrating it. So, you know, it's like, well, what more do we do? What more can we do? You know, we're showing experiments, tests, or whatever's necessary.
Take a court like Thompson and Zen Garcia did. That's the only way it's going to get addressed. Prove that you can have gas pressure without a container of some kind.
Well, I mean, again, they say force. There's a force, an imaginary force, but nonetheless, they say a force. Yeah, even though it's not a force, they say that's what's holding. So I think the only way to show them.
Well, that just means they have two things to prove that they have no proof.
Just everyone likes cutting off Spurs. The only way to show them. Go ahead,
No,
Spurs.
because I will say things where probably that you disagree, but I know, like Anthony, to show conspiracy cats, what they want to see is mass not attracting mass. You see, so something like Cavendish in a vacuum, for me, the balls wouldn't move. You wouldn't see this attraction. There's no cause. There's no reason.
For God's sake, Spurs, we covered this yesterday for about 2 hours.
Thank you.
No. I'm saying to satisfy them, not
who cares
us,
what they want. Right, you're talking about
why do you want to keep jacking off the ballers, Spursky?
Hold on, don't slag him off for
getting really fetishized.
Right, they are fundamentalist zealots. What they want to satisfy their religious zealotry is inconsequential. In order for it to satisfy a causal relationship scientifically, it would first need to have an observed phenomena. So you started off, Spurs, by saying they need to be satisfied that mass doesn't attract mass. Let me just say this and make it absolutely clear. Mass doesn't attract mass. Now, if it did, when I asked you yesterday to take me to the step 1 phenomena of mass attracting mass, you'd have shown it me. But you didn't. You showed me the balls. A man-made device. Now you want to put that man-made device in a vacuum chamber. Hold on. Now you want to put that man-made device in a vacuum chamber to satisfy the requirements of religious fundamentalist zealots. So, Spurs, you're never going to satisfy them because they want to believe that mass attracts mass, something you can never demonstrate ever in nature. So step 1 undoes this assertion. But if you keep letting them take you to step 3 claiming it's an experiment when it's not, you're always going to lose. No matter what parameters you put on it, like a vacuum chamber, while they beg the question of gravity, because they're automatically assuming it once they've got their little quote-unquote experiment, which it isn't. Mass doesn't attract mass ever, Spurs. Take me to that, then we can go and figure out why it happens. But we don't see cars levitating, and we do not see mass attracting mass. If we do, show it me.
Spurs, the other thing is, I listened yesterday to this conversation that you had back and forth, and about when you were asking about who's responsible, who makes that decision. Anybody that applies scientific method makes that decision, right? Anybody that doesn't apply scientific method can't. That's the reason why we have scientific method. But let's just say, for shits and giggles, because I like to beg the question. Nathan hates it, and so Nathan's going to get pissed off with me now when I say this. But just bear with me, Spurs. When they say mass attracts mass, you say to them, okay, well, how are you going to prove what's causing it? Now, don't forget that whether or not you accept the 50 millionth to one thing or not, who cares what the view is? It says in his own experiment that the chances of destroying the success of the experiment is quite high because you only need a little tiny force to ruin it all, or words to that effect. This is because they don't manipulate the thing that they claim is causing this mass attractive mass, which is gravity. They're not able to prove that this thing that's causing the mass attractive mass is actually gravity, because by his own volition, it only takes a very minute disruptive force to destroy the successes of the experiment. And because he didn't manipulate the gravity to prove that it was causing the thing that he believes he's seeing, it's more likely on a balance of probabilities that something else was causing it that he wasn't controlled. Let's be honest, it only takes somebody farting in the next room to create a turbulent air effect. And that could be enough to be, I'm not saying it is, but I'm just spitballing ideas for what might cause what he thinks is what he thinks. That's why you've got to manipulate it. It's no different to the rooster crowing and thinking that that's causing sunrise. But when you blow its head off, the sun still rises, because it might be the case that you actually, if gravity did exist, you might manipulate gravity to prove that it was the cause in his experiment and it didn't do anything. You know.
So shout out to Paraplegic Bear, Vinny Ballsack. Join the live show. Pseudoscience Cavendish Ball Lover. Enlighten us, Miss Know It All. Thank you very much for the super chat, Paraplegic Bear. Also shout out to Retro Bill, who says, looking forward to Spurs Gimo's new ASMR channel for ballers. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Retro Bill.
Right. So to summarize what Riley said very quickly, it's pretty much impossible to isolate your independent variable within the pseudoscience setup.
Right.
But to summarize, Riley, he's saying there's something that could exist that's within the medium.
No. Let's clear that up. No, he gave a disclosure at the beginning. I shut up because he gave that disclaimer. He's begging the question. He's automatically assuming there is a force of gravity. That's the problem. But he disclaimed that.
But Nathan, we're going to have to go. Nathan, sorry, we're going to have to go in order to show the ball earthers there is no gravity. We have to go there. We have to show Cavendish not working in a vacuum. Because listen, I said to Bob, there are no demonstrations of Cavendish in a vacuum, and he thought that was interesting because he would have thought that Cavendish in a vacuum would have been shown, everywhere, and this hasn't been found by anybody. Fight the Flat Earth, Red's Rhetoric, all the usual crew. They've searched far and wide, and all they can come up with is a paper. Someone's produced a paper to say it's in a vacuum, but we haven't actually seen this. Now, like Anthony's saying, I know you don't like begging the question because it's like giving them something to play with, to talk about. But I would like to know. This is why I push it. I would like to see, their answer, look in their faces, whatever it is. If they were to see Cavendish in a vacuum with no force, if they didn't move, what then? What would they say? Because I don't think we've reached that question or reached that point yet. Because
you're always going to say the same thing, that it's insignificant. Oh, it just didn't happen to work. The problem is they can't really isolate their independent variable, and therefore, they can claim, but it works sometimes. That's not a valid thing for an experiment.
Spurs, the problem is, if you claim anything to do with the vacuum chamber, right, what you're kind of doing is giving yourself the burden of trying to prove that the Cavendish experiment works in a vacuum or doesn't work in a vacuum chamber. And if you think about it, how do you move the weights towards the other weights to make them try and react to it if you're outside, because you can't go in there because we don't exist inside a vacuum chamber? You're not going to be able to do it.
That's not my problem. That's not my problem. That's not my problem. That the ball earthers need to produce.
Gosh,
in order, they would need to produce a vacuum, a Cavendish in a vacuum to see it working in order to prove this force. Otherwise, they have no force.
There is no force. Prove what force. There is no force, Spurs. These people who are hanging on to this old, outdated rhetoric don't have a force.
They already don't have a force.
I know, but see the problem with that though, if we just say there is no force, this falls on deaf ears. This just tells the ball earther, you don't know what you're talking. Not you, not anyone here. I just mean when someone just says no force, your gurus have said there's no
you're
force.
wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. It's not the ball earthers.
They
You're
kind
lumping
of
them all
that falls on
together.
deaf ears, and what they want, which is
No.
weird. They want
Just
a
let me
practical
know.
demonstration.
You're saying the ball earthers, it's the trolls. It's the same trolls you're talking to. It's the deaf ears they're falling on. Most normal human beings would see what we're talking about. These guys don't. You're appealing to the trolls that are never going to back down. Ever.
Possibly. But I mean, look, I have close friends and people. They are hardcore ball earthers. They're not trolls. They are just so indoctrinated that they just can't believe we've been lied to. So it's not. I understand that these people are like that, and it just seems they must be trolling. But in their minds, well, they have. Well, why would they lie to us? I don't see any reason. This is how they've seen it. So
That's not true. They definitely can conceive why they're being lied to. They just refuse to believe it. It's not like they can't
see
conceive
it, Arwin. They can't see it. They don't understand. It's
No,
like
they
a
can see it.
sickness.
They just
cannot.
refuse to see it.
Just let me know when I could talk.
They can't.
Oh, finally an opening. First, you're in love with your last name, chemo. You want to offer chemotherapy to corpses. There is no gravity. Their own science says there is no gravity. There is no force. Their own astrophysicist says there is no force. They are dead. They lost the argument. You come in and apply first aid to a dead person, you look crazy.
Hello, Adam.
Afternoon, everybody.
Can
Hope
you
you're all
just, can
okay?
you just enlighten us on something? I know you've only just arrived. I was just thinking about you.
Oh.
So, according to somebody in the chat, whose name will go unmentioned, that you can recreate this Cavendish experiment. I just wondered what your experience was with it when you were, training up.
I've done it. We did it I did A-level physics for the first year and then quit and changed it to psychology because it was just getting to nonsense. But we did it in part of the first year basic experiments, and they're not, obviously we didn't have a shed, but they're the same piece of equipment that you see that guy on 60 Symbols, the Nottingham University one, where he's saying the lab tech was so frustrated he cut it in half. So it was those ones we used. It didn't work, and I've commented on our own before saying that I always remember the teacher saying, "Yeah, don't worry, lads, that one never works." So
very interesting. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, Nathan, good. Talking about Cavendish?
We are. Perfect timing. What was your experience, Chris?
No mass attracting mass, that's for sure. There's a guy named B.M. Furball who right now has put together a series of videos documenting his Cavendish test. And if you go and look at what all he's had to do to counteract every variable, it's insane. So he has the most elaborate Cavendish setup I've ever seen. And even now, even after everything he's done, he's not fully ready to do the test. Like, he's got it in a windowed, I don't know if it's glass or plastic, but a windowed box. He's got holes in the box with strings coming through it. He has little pieces of paper hanging down to make sure there's no change in air currents. He's got remote controlled battery powered arms to move the weights into place. Like, it's insane. And he's still not able to to do it yet because there's just too many variables to take into account. So when some dummy like myself goes into their garage and sets up Cavendish and does it right, but just says, okay, let's see what happens, there's too many variables to keep track of. There's absolutely no way that Cavendish story, Cavendish is either made up, or if he did it, he lied and he just used some other math to come up with his numbers. I'm not sure, but there's no way that he put his apparatus in a shed in a box with a hole where he looked through his telescope, and that's exactly the story if you go read it. It's nuts.
It's a load of old bollocks. It just begs the question. It's taking step 3, experiment, before you even formulate a hypothesis and before you observe the actual phenomena you're claiming, which is mass attracting mass. Well, as I keep saying, there's not a phenomena that you're going to take me to where that happens.
Yeah, and I have to be honest. I mean, I've been listening to the conversations with you and Spurs Chemo yesterday, at least, and it's the discussions you've had that I've been a part of in the last, I don't know how long I've been coming here, but at least a year, maybe longer. And the ideas that you and others like John present about, okay, is it mass attracting a mass, or is it because it's made to move very easily? Like literally walking by the apparatus can cause it to move. Okay, so it's made by man to move easily, right? So what is the cause? Well, the cause could be wind. It could be motion of the ground. It could be magnetism. Could be electrostatics, right? So in other words, yeah, if something is causing it to move.
Stop. Sorry, you're now begging the question. So you're saying, well, what's the effect?
Absolutely.
Well, the effect is what you've conjured. In other words, what you're trying to explain is why do the balls do what they do? But they wouldn't be doing that if you hadn't strung them up in the way you'd strung them up. So you're trying to explain an effect that you've created yourself. So it's a man-made effect because balls don't attract each other in nature. So it's sort of whistling past the graveyard when you get straight onto explaining the effect that a man has created in this apparatus. Because you're not observing an effect and trying to figure out what's caused it, and then have developed apparatus to establish that, and the apparatus is used to isolate the variables. That's not what's happening. They're straight into, here's these balls going towards each other, why does that happen? You're like, hold on, what about all the stuff where you put it together to do that? Well, no, we'll just ignore that. There's an effect happening. Well, no, if we're doing a study of the natural world, we want to know where it happens in nature. Let's see what happened in nature. Oh, it doesn't. It happens in these balls only. Well, then it only happens in these balls, and you've made them to do that. So we don't need to explain anything. You've just conjured up an effect. Man-made effect. What is the effect? Well, the balls going towards each other. Because that certainly is an effect we observe. I don't observe that.
This is what we're trying to find out, if it's because, as I said, Bob says the Earth has a huge mass, or describes it as a huge mass, and things, again, this is not how I'm seeing, this is what the argument is, that things are attracted to this huge mass. Now, again, for me, if this were, a real thing, you would have to use science to find out if there is an attraction, or if, what's going on. And I feel that if the mass attractors saw an experiment, in their eyes, not how we just, in their understanding, they would be satisfied. So if they didn't have a result, they would have no result. There's no force. I think they're like us. We want to see something, but unfortunately, they've been, indoctrinated this way to, attack us and ask us for demonstrations and not give a demonstration themselves. So. Cavendish for me, if Rumpus, because he's in the chat now, going, we have a paper, and the paper. If he were to witness Cavendish in a vacuum and there was zero attraction, what would he say? And even Geo has said, oh gosh, if there was no attraction in that Cavendish, we're screwed, we're done. So that's something I want for the ballers to put together, at least, so they can see for themselves if mass attracts mass. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I agree.
Spurs.
You're saying
I've dealt with this. Spurs, I've dealt with it.
I know.
It doesn't attract. Do you want to show me where it attracts? Oh, in the balls. So we need to start explaining this device again. We're going around in circles. If you need to observe something that's happening in nature that needs explanation, then you develop a hypothesis. with an independent and a dependent variable. The dependent variable is the first thing in this first step. The phenomena itself, that's your dependent variable. You haven't got one. That's the end of this discussion. Now, you can keep saying, oh, well, no, I'll allow them to beg the question that there's a force we need to explain. Where's it demonstrated? In these balls. Look, they're going towards each other. Spurs, you're just allowing them to beg the question. And if you, it seems at a fundamental level you don't appreciate that.
Could I
Hold on, if you're saying
stick a two-penny with things, Spurs?
Yes, please, Adam.
I've been listening to this, guys, and Spurs, respect, mate. I've utmost respect for the challenge you're taking on, but I think Ranty kind of hit it on the head. You've got the ammunition that you're asking for to engage with any reasonable person, but you seem at the moment to be trying to construct an argument dedicated to the hardcore ballers that aren't really interested in your argument, and it seems you're engaging now in a fruitless task of trying to presuppose all of their nonsense and have a rebuttal for it, when you're never gonna, as Ranty said, you're never gonna convince them. But I think you've got all the arguments you need to engage in real useful conversation with somebody who is actually interested in learning the facts of the situation. I think.
Yeah, not fundies. You're never going to convert fundies. What Adam's saying, Spurs, is you're not going to be able to convert a fundamentalist religious zealot with the winning argument. Even though it's the winning argument, you're not going to convince those people. They are going, no, the winning argument isn't enough. You can't just chop off my argument at the beginning, at the knees, and then say, look, I've cut your argument off the knees. You're begging the question. You're assuming this force, and you haven't got any scientific validity to what you claim is a force that you've created in a device. That's the argument, the beginning and the end of it. Now you say, well, no, because they've still got the device. So what? Let them go to their little temple with their little balls and worship them. Don't worry about it, Spurs. They're zealots.
Adam,
the thing is, you get a response, don't you?
You're saying, these are trolls because they believe, well, look, Bob and, Bob and co, they also believe mass attracts mass. So it's not just globe earthers we are up against. And, it seems pigeonholed. Oh, you're up against these trolls. But no, people of all kinds, all over, believe there is an attraction. Okay, now Bob's one of the biggest flat earthers.
Bob is wrong.
Right? And if Bob may be wrong, but what do we do with Bob?
No,
do we just
he's
say,
wrong.
Bob, you're a troll?
Okay, no worries. You've got a question. What do we do? Hold on, this is just endless chatter. You've asked a question. Let's give it an answer. What do we do with these people who say they believe there is a force? Yeah? What do we do with them? You say, please, can you show me a force of mass attracting mass? Now, if they point at their religious belief in what Earth is doing, then you go, I'm afraid not. You're going to have to lend some validity to your belief. Now, how do we give validity to our beliefs when we're asserting cause? Oh, science. It's worked up until now. It's progressed humanity through scientific discovery. It's definitely proving cause. If your supposition of cause is correct, when you vary and manipulate it and cause the effect. Now, if they cannot do that, then they have a fundamentalist religious belief in a force they cannot demonstrate. And me, a reasonable person, is not interested in their fundamentalist religious assertion or belief that they cannot validate. If they can validate it, I'll be interested in it. If they can't, it's just their belief, and they are welcome to it. If they assert it as fact, then they are wrong, and I will be the first to say that. They are wrong to assert a belief in a force as a force. It is not, unless you can verify it. But the first thing you're going to have to do is show it me. Observe a phenomena. So, what you do for those persons or people who assert this force that they believe in is ask them to show it to you. Simple.
I like a good Bible quote, but Spurs, I'd maybe just say to you, stop casting your pearls to the swine, mate.
Thank you, Adam.
I've got a question for the Rumpus in chat. 2 questions, Rumpus. If gravity's not a force, where do you get the little g from in your definition for weight? And secondly, and what I mean by that is what gravity, what experiments is there that's been demonstrating that little g? And secondly, Rumpus, if gravity's not a force and it's the bending of space-time, what's causing tides? I'm done. Take your time, Rumpus. We'll give you 12 months.
Rumpus died a long time ago. Musser put everyone behind the 8 ball when he had that show with Fight the Flat Earth, which Anthony set up wonderfully. The game is over. The game is over, has been over, and now it's just
Rumpus is saying that gravity is a force in our 3-dimensional world. Well, George Musa says that gravity is not a force, but Rumpus can think of it as a force. Well, everybody else doesn't think of it as a force, Rumpus. So in our 3-dimensional world, it is not a force. So what's causing tides?
Someone correct me if I'm wrong in my perception here. How could 50th of 1, whatever that equation is, 50 million to 1, as attributed to the gravity's force? How could that little amount, 1 out of 50 million ones, how could that do all the things they say it does?
Anthony, you're poisoning this panel. So you've got 10th man to now beg the question. Poison.
Well, my point is this, Nathan.
50 millionth of an assumed force that these fundy zealots need. 50 millionth
right,
of that.
Let's
see that
but
first.
Let me finish where I was going. So they made up a mathematical equation of bending of space-time, a concept, because that one doesn't work. The first one doesn't work. So they went to the bending of space-time, threw Newton under the bus, and Newton said he didn't even believe it. They've lost.
Yeah, can I just read what Rumpus has put? He says, you can measure little g by simply measuring how quickly something accelerates downwards. Well, that isn't what little g is, though, is it, Rumpus? Because it's a 50 millionth of the object that's accelerating downwards that we should be measuring. And I'd like to see where that measurement was done in scientific method, please. And then he says, Musa agrees with you. He doesn't. Musa is literally saying the opposite of you, Rumpus. He was referring to the behavior in the 4-dimensional world where mass bends space-time. In that environment, gravity is not a force. It's not a force in our environment either, Rumpus. Come on, stop being a moron.
While they claim mathematically as a description to bend a concept, in reality, we don't have space-time. That's not something that you can bend. It's a concept. So if you're going to claim a concept gives rise to a non-force force that we can think of as a force even though it's not a force, then you're just a double-speaking zealot. But we already know that Mr. Air is not the atmosphere.
Good day.
It's not the atmosphere.
It's a good day for Flat Earth. They've lost at every point. Now they're making even more things up about the stuff they already made up.
Is there nobody in the Discord chat that wants to actually say something? I mean, there's all the Globers in there, surely.
Can I say something to Spurs real fast before?
No.
Spurs, if you're really hung up on the Cavendish, what I would recommend, honestly, is doing it yourself and seeing how ridiculous it is. And that right there will prove to you that it's man-made, that it's easily moved, and it's impossible to get the torsion bar from stopping complete movement 100%. It's not possible.
Now that we've got quite a lot of people watching, I'd like to take this opportunity to correct a common misrepresentation of me by people like the Rumpus. And he does this all the time, and he knows that he's lying. So I'm going to Rumpus misrepresents me with what I said in my Cavendish video. And this is it on screen, Nathan, if you wouldn't mind presenting my screen.
Yep.
So I'm just going to play this slowly, and I'm going to talk through it with what it actually says because basically Rumpus is telling people lies and it's not acceptable. It's not okay to misrepresent people, Rumpus. You're doing what Sean Hufford does. I put in the video, the Cavendish experiment was not an experiment because there was no manipulation of gravity. Nobody can manipulate gravity to prove it within science. Even if it did exist, you guys accept that it's a 50 million to 1 chance. Now, this is the bit that Rumpus attacks me on because I put the word chance here. But look what I also said. Smiley face. Look, disclaimer, big letters. I realize that this isn't technically probability. It's the ratio of how much would be needed to be. It's the ratio of how much would be needed to be varied, but no more. And that number is just laughable. So let's not misrepresent me, Rumpus. Let's get it correct. I realize that it's not a ratio, a probability. I expressly disclaimed it, Rumpus. I realize the point I'm making is remoteness, not that it's a probability. I'm just using it to demonstrate the point of remoteness. So let's not misrepresent me anymore, please, Rumpus.
You're asking a double-speaking fundamentalist religious zealot not to misrepresent you when his entire worldview is based on double-speak and misrepresentations of reality based on mathematics and reification. Yeah, good luck with that.
No, I'm not actually. But yes, superficially, that does look like what I'm doing. What I'm actually doing is appealing to your audience, Nathan, that Rumpus is a dishonest, misrepresentative sack of poo, because I did not say that it was a chance. I was using the point to make the point that it was remoteness. And I gave a massive disclaimer under it saying that I realize it's not a chance or a probability. I realize it's a ratio. But my point is that it's 50 million of the object falling through the air. That's the thing that you're supposed to be measuring, a 50 millionth of that object. Not the object falling through the air, the 50 millionth of it. That's supposed to be the gravity bit. That's the bit you need to wiggle. That's the bit you need to prove. The 50 millionth of the object falling through the air.
When you beg the question of a force.
Yeah. Utter nonsense, Rumpus. I still want to know what's causing the tides, though, Rumpus. If gravity's not a force, and we know that it's not a force because Musa told us very clearly. Oh, and by the way, Rumpus said earlier on, he says he wasn't very clear. Musa wasn't very clear. Yeah, he was. Everybody understands it. If gravity's not a force, and even if it is 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, bendy space-time, what's causing tides? Because just because you can measure it as a force doesn't make it a force, Rumpus.
If Right the Hand if you want to drop me an email, Right the Hand, I'll get you, or drop me a line on Skype. I'll get into one of the Skype conversations, like masturbators. Unless one of you has already got Right the Hand on Skype.
Not really.
Does he want to come on?
I could add him in.
Does he want to come on?
Oh, hold on. Physics, have you got Right the Hand on your Skype already?
I have him on Skype. I have my Google Hangouts. I can invite him to Google if you'd like.
No, if you can just add him into Master B. Can you do that? Are you in Master B chat?
I'll add him to Master B.
Perfect. Add him into Master B. That'd be perfect.
Acknowledged.
Thank you very much, Physics.
Nathan, would you put me back on screen again, please? I'm sorry.
I can.
So Rumpus's last comment was...
Hold on. Chris has been trying to get something in for a few seconds. Go ahead, Chris.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, Anthony, one more thing you can add to this is there's no natural observation for Cavendish. There's never been lateral movement of any two objects due to supposed gravity ever.
So the Rumpus's last comment was, you called it a chance, you utter moron. The words are there in front of you. Literally, it's in the text. Let's just see what it says. Even if it did exist, you guys accept a 50 million to 1 chance. That was because I compared it to the lottery earlier on. However, Rumpus, look, in big, massive letters, the word disclaimer comes up next. I realize this isn't technically probability. It's the ratio of how much would be needed to be varied. So let's be clear, Rumpus. Let's not cherry pick the first bit and ignore the second bit. Let's apply both of them in context. 50 million to 1 as a probability or as a ratio is pretty small, isn't it, Rumpus? That's my point. Remoteness. Not probability, not ratio. Remoteness. You don't understand remoteness because you're dishonest.
Okay. I know you're going to want to endlessly argue with Rumpus, but Chris's point is a million times better. No offense, Anthony. Can you repeat what you said, Chris? Thank you for presenting that, and I'm sure poking Rumpus is great fun and all, but Chris made it perfectly clear the point I've been trying to make to Chemo for the last 2 days.
Well, basically, Anthony said there's no independent variable, which is true because you can't manipulate gravity, but there's no natural observation to begin with. So there's nowhere in nature that I've come across or had anyone else show me where two objects attract each other laterally meaning side to side, not up and down. All attractive motion is apparently up and down from what I've come across. But Cavendish is a lateral movement of objects, but we don't see that anywhere in nature, and it's not possible. Like again, mountains aren't attracting cars. Like you could put a little toy car next to a mountain, and it won't attract it. You could put a Jeep next to a mountain, and it won't attract it. There's no side to side or lateral movement in nature ever.
Or to put it more succinctly, mass does not attract mass.
That too.
Yeah, and
But it does it sideways. I mean, yeah, if they're going to demonstrate, gravity, they need to demonstrate it attracting downwards, not sideways, surely.
Well, they need to show the phenomena of mass attracting mass, as opposed to them picking something up and dropping it.
This is where they're hijacking equilibrium and disequilibrium and guising it as gravity.
Yeah, exactly. They're begging the question of this force, and then they force disequilibrium, and then ignore the preceding motion that got it there, and then ask you to explain from there on in what's occurring.
The other thing is I want to preach a little bit about my last 3-4 videos have all been like actual attempts at trying to demonstrate my point that I believe is true, which is that relative density, when in a state of disequilibrium, is a force, according to at least F equals ma. Because if you have an accelerating mass, in other words, movement, Newton states that that makes it a force. Now, not that I even agree with that point, but that's what their science or their mechanical Newtonian principles for movement demands. Let me just be clear, I don't agree with these. Anyway, I showed that if you vary the density in some way, and what I mean when I say density, I don't just mean the amount of particulates in a given volume. If you manipulate the volume or the mass, then if you create a disequilibrium for whatever magical reason, creation or otherwise, movement happens. I don't know why it does it, but I know that it does it, and I demonstrated it. So it's not okay to ignore the fact that relative density disequilibrium does cause movement. It is the cause. I don't care what went on in the conical flask in terms of the chemistry that actually went on. I don't care whether the hydrogen atoms exploded with the magnesium atoms. I don't care about any of that. We can observe that there was a change in pressure because the syringe moved. And we can observe that we manipulated that density of the inside the flask by burning something. It doesn't matter what happens inside that flask. If it creates a movement of the piston, that's the visualization of the change in pressure. That the mere fact that it changes or it moves the piston means that there's a force there. Don't know why, just is. So let's not argue about whether or not relative density is a force or not. It clearly is by their own science. And nobody has been able to come up with anything credible against it because it did manipulate the density. The manipulation was done by doing something in the flask. So if anybody can debunk it, again, let's see what's going on there causing the movement of the syringe, because it is the thing that we manipulate in scientific method. And the ballers don't like it because we can show that the cherry tomato moves because of relative density disequilibrium. No force required.
Yeah.
Rumper says that you're inferring
they were
an incorrect...
excellent demonstrations.
Yeah. I mean, if they're wrong, they're wrong. But let's get some real science for why they're wrong.
Hold on. What do you mean wrong? They are what they are. They are what they are, which is a demonstration.
Yeah. Rumpus says that I'm inferring an incorrect cause. No, the cause, Rumpus, the presumed cause in scientific method is the thing that you manipulate. And we did manipulate something in that flask.
Doesn't
so
matter.
whatever goes on inside the flask, not really that
sorry
bothered.
to do this to you. You're falling into this trap, right? So, what's the observed phenomena again, Anthony?
Some things appear to move in all by themselves if we manipulate. Like some things sink, some things float.
Whoa. if we
Some things
manipulate,
suspend.
if things appear, what? Sorry.
Some things sink, some things float, some things suspend within the medium. That's the observed phenomena.
Shout out to Retro Bill for the super chat. He says, Muppet tards keep pushing gravity, but we are not, quote unquote, falling for it. Thank you very much for the super chat, Retro Bill.
I was just about to say that, Nathan. The phenomenon in his experiment, right? So he caused this phenomena that he's describing.
Well, actually, no, Spurs. No, he has just he's just pummeled me, Spurs. That's why I shut up and read a super chat and went quiet. But you feel free to take up the slack that I've just been pummeled on if you want to.
I want to know. He has an experiment. He observes a phenomena, but according to the method, this is not a natural phenomena here. We don't see what he's observed in nature.
Yeah,
right?
we do.
But for me,
hold on, Spurs. Yeah, hold on. Don't just declare we don't observe it in nature when that's literally how he's pummeled me.
Spurs, what Nathan means is that maybe you missed what I said when I said that some things appear to float, things appear to sink, some things appear to rise. That's the observed phenomena.
Okay, so what's next? Some things appear to float, some things appear to fall.
Well, the thing is, when we have the density tower and we have the cherry sat in the middle, the argument is that it's that buoyancy is causing it because of gravity when it moves. The egg was displaced in my egg experiment because apparently, according to these morons, that gravity caused it because the buoyant effect relies on gravity, and we can prove it with maths. Well, that's not what scientific method states. Scientific method states that it's the wiggling of the independent variable that proves the cause and effect relationship, regardless of any maths. So that's not true. But what it proves is that if gravity was the cause in the egg experiment, then that's the thing that's got to be manipulated in scientific method. Gravity was not manipulated. The density of the medium was manipulated, and scientific method states that that's your presumed cause, and when you wiggle it, that you prove the cause and effect relationship. And that's what happened. But Rumpus thinks that I've somehow confused correlation with causation. And I would say, no, Rumpus, I complied with scientific method. I win, you lose. Sorry. Why don't you join the panel, Rumpus, and let's have the discussion about independent variables. I'd love to hear how you're going to explain in a way how weight is a force when we know that it's not actually, gravity is not a force anymore at all.
Really, you want 20 minutes of Rumpus explaining something he can't demonstrate?
Well, no, just beg the question. All that'll happen is he'll immediately arrive, make a little disclaimer that begs the question, and he'll go from there. That's all they can do. Not like we haven't experienced the Rumpus before.
This is what I was saying, Nathan, yesterday. They want to talk about it, whereas you're saying, I don't want to talk about it. I just want you to demonstrate it.
That's not what I said.
This is what I was saying, what they want to do. They want to socialize about these begging the question points, right?
Right, they want to beg the question. I understand that. So what would typically happen is Rumpus would arrive. He'd immediately disclaim that he's going to beg the question of a force. Then he'll start to describe how he's measuring the assumption of a force. Now, in that process, I will jump in and go, you've begged the question. The moment he does it, yeah? Then he'll cry foul for about 25 minutes that I'm censoring reality as I point out the rebuttal to his assertion, where he begs the question. That's all that ever happens. Nothing ever changes in that regard. You want to let them beg the question. What you want, Spurs, is to let them beg the question, let them give their 20-minute explanation within the begging the question fallacy, and then address that. And I just say no. I'm not going to allow you to beg the question.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but that's what I was pointing out yesterday, is why are they here? Why do they do this? And they want to...
Not again. Not again. You had the whole show yesterday. Your real desire, Spurs. I love your empathy.
Spurs, I regularly give elaborate lectures on the psychology of these ballers and how it works. You should know why they do what they do.
Yeah,
allow me to finish, please. Spurs, your empathy is A+. but without wisdom, you're misappropriating it. What I've seen is that you really want to have the ability to have crazy people so that you could practice your psychology on them, how you could help them. You have the patience of a turtle, but you're not helping them because you let them beg the question, and their craziness gets even stronger. So you want to offer therapy when you should be offering truth.
And with that, I'll say if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. However, if you're watching this live on Nathan Oakley 1980, unfortunately, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. And of course, a massive thank you to all of today's debating panel for making this debate possible. If you need to keep yourself occupied after this stream is over, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum, which I strongly advise you all join to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Shout out to Earth is Seriously Flat. Globe mentality is under attack by FE logic. Another big shout out to Earth is Seriously Flat.
I'm telling you, Nathan, they want to be around the flat earthers. They think, do you know, I was thinking about this as well. I think one of the main reasons is
Chemo, can I stop you? I'm sorry.
We as flat earthers dare to think about these things and actually go there. So they're intrigued, like, what is it? Well, how are they able to process and go there? So, you know, that's one of the reasons why they like to be close, to find out why. What is it that makes us tick?
Let's see. The Gestapo wants to be around American forces in World War II because why? You're showing your craziness. Come on, Spurs. You had the whole show yesterday, and you couldn't get this point across. And now you're trying it again today. Why don't you stand on the rock solid truth and have them come back with answers against good questions, and let that be the obvious therapy that it can be, rather than you begging the question with them and causing more neurosis.
Oh, unless you know they see the errors of their ways.
Did you listen?
They just, yeah.
Did you want me to remind you?
They need to see their errors.
Do you want me to remind you of yesterday's show when you said to Chris, okay, these guys are suffering. They're sufferers. Unmute yourself and show the pain that you're in right now. You actually think that helps? You think the guy's going to unmute himself and show the pain that he's in?
Yeah. The pain is not the problem. Their response to it is the problem. They're doubling down. That's the problem.
Why they're angry. They're angry people. And
we get angry as well. We don't double down on our mistakes, and if we do, then we're screwed. Just like them.
The thing is, when we double down on mistakes, they all jump on us when we make a mistake, right? But nobody ever jumps on them when they do, ever. It's like different rules apply to them.
The problem is they're jumping on themselves. They're wrestling with it. They're wrestling with this information because they know that they're wrong, but they don't want to let go.
When you violate,
I've had ball earthers give two opposing answers at the same time, and I'm like, well, look, you ball earthers can't even get your story straight, you know. So I don't know, you know, I'm able to show that they are incorrect, and you know, because the last thing they want to be is considered stupid. You know, they have to reconsider their position. And
they
that's
have
all we can do.
It's not about their feelings, it's about their decisions.
You know.
Yes, bro. So let us feel sorry for them while they call us stupid while they work that out for themselves.
until
So
they
again,
feel
let me go get my tissues for all the ballers who want to call me an idiot because I want to question what I've been taught.
until
All
they
right.
feel
When they
stupid,
say to me,
they won't give
if
it
they say
up.
to me, "Oh, you're an idiot, you're a moron," I don't take it personally or see it as offensive. I see it like I was just trying to explain. You know,
I
they want
don't
to attack
either. I
NASA.
don't
They want
care
to
what they
attack
call me.
science.
I have no problem with that. It's just that that's their mentality. So why should I try to coddle them? That makes no sense to me. That's the part that doesn't compute with me.
No,
I'm
well,
sorry.
flat Earth brings out flat Earth brings out the worst in people, unfortunately. And you know, in any other setting, they wouldn't be like that. Flat Earth seems to be the one where it triggers people to no end. And you know, there's something wrong here. So it's more than just, you know, these people are
Again,
freaking out.
you're
It's trauma for
mixing
me. They're
in the
victims.
regular ballers that
They're
haunt
victims,
us
and
and the normal people. Not the same thing. They're not the same. The problem with the
also, you
ballers is
know,
they're
when you're
doubling down
discussing with a
on their
ball earther,
mistakes. It's not about their
it's not
feelings. It's about their decisions.
all right. All right, but it's not necessarily to convince Rumpus, right? So if I'm debating Rumpus, Rumpus is going, "Oh, you're a moron, you don't get it." You know, so I let him say his piece, knowing the audience is listening, and then ask him to prove his. Do you know how many times this is how Flat Earth has risen because the Ball Earthers refuse to prove their claims? And you probably guys feel like it goes unheard, like, well, you know, we're just making these arguments. It seems like like a crazy show, but this is what people are looking for. They're looking for the Ball Earthers, like Rumpus, to give them, you know, proof and evidence. They don't. Their minds are made up. So, you know, it's like when Nathan attacks the Ball Earthers. So the fence sitter, imagine like you're listening on the fence now. So Nathan's got a Ball Earther, and he's like, well, prove your claims. Provide proof. So I'm like watching. I'm like, well, if I was a Ball Earther, I'd be like, go on, Rumpus. Come on, just show Nathan that you can prove the ball, and doesn't happen. So I'm thinking, well, why? Why is Rumpus not providing the evidence to Nathan? What's going on? So that happens. People are listening. You know, these are not behind closed doors where you're just having a one-on-one.
Spurs. That's the exact reason I found the show myself. Okay, because at some point I had already been convinced that I don't live on a spinning ball. Now I want to hear people argue about it. I want to hear this debate. I want to hear if I've missed something. Maybe some glober out there has something that I haven't heard that will snap in my brain and say, hey, all right, that makes sense. All right. Have not heard that yet.
I said this. But I've said this.
You know what I mean?
This to Nathan not so long ago. I said, you know, yeah, but you're right. This is what I said. I said, flat earthers in the back of their mind, or, you know, fence sitters are thinking, you know, maybe there's one ball earther who will do something somewhere. And the longer that goes on, well, there's nobody. What's going on? How comes they're not doing it? That's what convinces the fence sitter, is when the ball earther fails to provide. So when I'm having my calm discussions with a raging ball earther, and I'm just like, okay, can you just demonstrate your claim? Oh, you're a moron, you don't understand. We have provided, we've told you, they've done it, all the same rhetoric. You know, you keep a level head, then knowing the audience are paying attention to proof. They want demonstrations. Yeah, there will be people there for entertainment, but what you've just said is
and don't get me wrong, Spurs. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I commend you for doing it. You know, like there needs to be guys like you that do that. But it's not going to be everybody.
I do that, but I don't drone on and on and on and on about it all day long.
Spurs.
For fuck's sake.
Spurs. I understand your point with regards to maybe wanting to argue with these particular people, but I do think that you're saying it's for the audience, and I think you've met anyone with their mind open is able to hear their rhetoric after a short amount of time and see and hear themselves, just like you do, that they're not answering. So I don't think necessarily this work you're putting in is, again, beneficial for anyone that's actually going to listen anyway. The things you're trying to take them to, anyone with half understanding, like yourself, like us, And anyone honestly approaching the subject, I think, can see through it already, pal. I just think it's look, they need us to exist, mate. They are defined by us, and their whole reason for being is to oppose us. So no matter what you say, they're always going to oppose us. And sadly, it's not honest conversation. And the past few days have been great examples of that, where really good, valid points come out, and you get no, because a shoe is a phenomenon, you know, as your response, and then it seems a waste of energy.
That was classic.
I think your skills would be.
See, this is what I was just saying again. I was just saying, you're thinking, oh, Brenda's saying shoe, Nathan getting frustrated. Oh, this is just a waste of time. But people watching that will be like, well, why on earth she's saying shoe? You know, I'm a person who's looking for information, and Brenda's talking about shoes. This can't be. So what happens is people will go and watch flat earth material, and then they'll be like the guy was just saying, you know, I'm watching this, maybe because we're already in it, Adam. We're like set. We're like, you know, we forgot. I don't know if you've forgotten, but it's like seems to be that people have forgotten what it was like just being told the earth was flat, right? So these people have just got this extension of that thought, that, you know, that moment that we were in. So, you know, these people, look, I feel Rumpus, someone like Rumpus, if shown or given, you know, people like Jeremy, people like, you know, your most ardent ball earther can be shown that it's not a globe. That I feel, and I've seen it. I've seen them come very close. I've heard him, you know, Jeremy admit one time he came very close. He was nervous, not close, but he was nervous. One time when we brought out the NASA paper about flying on a level plane, the aircraft. He said he read that. He was like, oh gosh, flat earthers have got us now, you know, and he was considering what that could be all about. And he was like, oh no, he's able to brush it off. But
I have something that I like to say on the planes, actually. Is that right?
I was just veering off, but yeah, you can. But I just feel they're not all trolls. I just think they're astonished. That's what I hear from their voices. They're high pitched. This just can't be. This just can't be. You're a moron. It just cannot be. So you have to remain calm and just let them explain what they believe, and then just prove that they're wrong.
And with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who joined us on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream. Of course, a massive thank you to all who hopefully smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and all that good stuff. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley. Another massive thank you to today's debating panel, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!